Welcome to Emerging Franchise Brands, the podcast that introduces you to the visionary founders of America's fastest growing franchise opportunities. We'll also hear from industry pros as they share what it really takes to achieve the elusive milestone of 100 plus locations. I am your host, Frank Fiume, founder of I9 Sports, and my 20-year journey from inception to acquisition has given me a unique perspective on how to succeed in franchising. Join me as we welcome today's guest. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. On today's show, I have the founder of Craft Loft, Jen Gouldstone. But first, I have my co-host that I'd like to introduce. I've got Drew Alfano, who co-hosted with me back a few months ago. Drew, how's it going?
Great. Thank you for having me back, Frank.
That's awesome. Well, Drew, I think we might have missed this the first time you and I did the show together. I would love for you to give the audience a little bit of your backstory and your background on what you've been doing in franchising.
Sure. So I've been in franchising for about 6.5 years. I'm director of business development at Retro Fitness. We are a gym franchise with a couple hundred locations open or in development. Just love franchising. I'm a certified franchise exec with the IFA, and then I run a young professionals organization within franchising just to help elevate the next generation. So just love franchising, and I'm excited to be here.
I love that. You know, Drew, if you would take a moment, I'd love for you to just tell everybody a little bit about Fire 35. I think it's a terrific organization that you're part of, and we are certainly in a changing of the guard in franchising, and I love the new, the new generation that's part of franchising and so passionate about our industry. So would you just share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Fire 35, it stands for Franchise Industry Rising Executives Under 35. And it's really just to help connect, collaborate, and grow the next generation of franchise leaders. We definitely think that there is an old guard and nothing's wrong with that. But just the next generation that's coming up, there's a different way to network and connect. And we like to say the waters are not what they used to be. So we want to give people the opportunity to build their Rolodex and connect and grow and hopefully find mentors and opportunities and just really be involved in this great industry because it's so fantastic and we want more people drinking the Kool-Aid.
Sweet. Well, if somebody wants to become a member of Fire 35, how would they do it?
Just go to fire35.com and you could sign right up, and then you get access to everybody who's part of it. So a bunch of really ambitious people who are under 35, anywhere from 18 years old all the way to 35 years old, a great handful of people who are executives and coordinators and everything in between. So really collaborative group and really excited about how it's grown. And thank you for supporting it, by the way.
Before I bring on today's guest, here are 3 things you'll learn from today's show. Number 1, how the business evolved from plant care into a thriving creative hub for adults and families. 2, why crafting is making a comeback as people are seeking hands-on social experiences. And finally, why she chose franchising to expand, focusing on owner-operators who love people as much as they love crafting. Now let's switch over to our guest. Today we've got Jen Gouldstone of Craft Loft. So Jen, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Jen, tell us about Craft Loft. First off, what do you guys do?
Well, we're all about crafting, and we're focused on the adult beginner learner, but we're also friendly to families. And it's about discovering, learning, and then sharing crafting. So our store has a combination of a retail space as well as lots of tables and chairs.
Now you're based in the Boston area, right? And you got this started, looks like during COVID, right? Or just right after the...
Well, I would say actually the impetus for a physical brick and mortar location for Craft Loft started during COVID. So my previous first business actually is still running. And as a result of COVID and going remote, we started doing remote team building events. And during those Zoom calls, people would ask us, do you have a physical location? Can we come visit when this is all over? We heard that over and over. And when it was starting to wane, and we said, let's take a look and see what kind of locations we could find. So that was where we found Craft Loft's first flagship location, and we opened end of November of 2022. So we're almost celebrating our 3 full years, which has been amazing.
Congratulations. All right. So what were you doing before Craft Loft? Tell me about your first business.
I was actually trained as a software engineer and was in the tech industry for close to 2 decades in various capacities, different sized businesses. I was at Google, I was at TripAdvisor, a handful of startups. But in between those experiences, I always popped in and out of corporate to start an idea. I actually owned a bubble tea store way back when it became really big now with all the franchises that you see in bubble tea. And then I would go back into corporate. So I would say, when I turned 40, so I can't qualify for the under 35 group anymore. But when I turned 40, I said, that's enough tech for me. I'm going to combine what I really enjoy doing basically through my teenage years, plants, animals, loved crafting in my free time. And let's see if there's something we can combine with the knowledge that I had from that experience. So I was doing before.
You've always been kind of hovering around this entrepreneurial spirit that you've always had, right?
Right.
It sounds like that you finally said enough with corporate, you're going to do this. And was it a big shift for you? Like how hard was it to make the shift?
Well, I think the hardest was probably telling my parents who are traditional, you can imagine Asian parents. They're like, why are you quitting? This is great, great job, which at that point I had already seen tech in lots of different ways. And I was working on software applications that were used by millions of users, but I personally knew none of them, right? And it really just felt somewhat impersonal, very intangible. And so I wanted to really try something different with the second phase of my career.
So it sounds like you didn't necessarily have the parent support. What did other friends and family have to say when you told them you're leaving this
Yeah.
really respective career and you're going to go launch this unknown brand?
Well, we didn't start off with Craft Loft, actually. So when we first started, it was as an umbrella of the first business, which was in commercial services, where we went into businesses and looked after the plants that were in buildings and offices. So great recurring revenue. We also did acquisitions through that umbrella business. So during COVID, everybody pivoted, right? So there was no question as to what you could try and do. With my tech background, I was able to set up a very quick e-commerce site where we started selling plants online. And that led us to the first virtual team building activity, which was succulent terrarium building. We already had the ability to package and ship, so we did that. So it happened so quickly. There was no, I wasn't out, hey, what do you guys think about this idea? I'm like, what are we going to do to pay the bills? So there was a lot of internally, we're just going to make it happen. And also COVID times, folks weren't, I was not having my lunches with friends and family as much as I
Right.
probably would have. So I think by the time we emerged from all that and to do a check-in to say, hey, what are you up to now? I'm like, this is what I'm doing. They're like, whoa. But it worked out well. I think throughout that first maybe 5 to 6 months, we really heard from our customers where they gravitated towards. So our first floor plan when we opened is very different now from where we are today. And the product mix is different. What we offer on the activities are different. We've started different formats of workshops as well as walk-in, as well as private events and private lessons. There really a lot of it is due to customer demand. They asked us, do you
Sure.
offer this? Do you offer that? So it's been really exciting to see all the new developments that we've had throughout this experience and then just to see the reaction from the public as to what that is. And what we do has a very strong component of word of mouth as well as social imagery. And you made something, you want to show it off, right? So it's a really nice cycle that we have going.
Jen, tell me about some of the things that you can make. I looked online and I'm looking at the pictures and it looks like my creative brain and juices were flowing because
Exactly.
it looks like so many different things that could create and tell me a little bit about what you can expect when it comes to the activities that you can do.
Yeah, I think the biggest expectation is that you can't do it all in one sitting, right? So I would start with our big categories because within each category, there are additional details there. So one big category, because we come from the plant world when this all started, was nature-focused activities. So you could do succulent terrarium. That was our very first one and still very popular. We make bonsai trees. We do wreath making around holiday time. We do pressed florals. That's very popular. Another category is around we call moldable. So things that are a little bit elastic. So we do slime making for the kiddos in us, right? We do air dry clay. We also have resin. Resin is a really fun medium. You can put it in molds, pop it out. We make dice. You can also put it on surfaces. We make charcuterie boards. We do serving trays. Those are just so fun.
Ooh.
And then beyond that, we also have more specialized content such as basket making and bookbinding. And then around seasonal time, we also have pumpkin, really lots of pumpkin. October was all pumpkins. So, I mean, those are just some categories that comes to mind. We also have a lot of the classics like sewing, knitting, crocheting, where we used to learn from each other, from parents, grandparents, what have you. But now that folks are a little further apart and you just don't have that support network anymore. And where do you go to learn it, you know? Yeah, I would say where we really come in to make things easier for folks is both combination of having the space as well as the right materials and then the support and the sort of instructional piece. If you look at what's out there now, you go to a box store, get supplies, maybe you have to go to multiple stores to get supplies. Maybe you forgot something or got the wrong supplies. And then you're out watching the YouTube videos or what have you. And nobody's going to give you that feedback of, are you doing it right? Oh, here's where you need to adjust, or you kind of skipped a thing there that's going to catch you later down the road. So it makes it harder for folks to learn, right? So we're that end to end, everything you need to be successful at a project. And oh, by the way, you don't have to clean up, you don't have to set up, and you have no extra material. So you have to figure out how to store and later on just sit there in a corner that you don't get back to anymore. So we're making crafting much, much easier, much more joyful, and for really community building as well.
Jen, you've been doing this for about 3 years, and I'm wondering when you were starting out, was there a time where you knew, was there a pivotal moment when you thought, I think I'm really onto something here that could be big?
Yeah, I would say, well, a couple of things. The things that we started offering the content, like plants and succulents and watercolor origami, those things I have been doing since I was very little. So in some ways it wasn't, and I've always been sharing those with friends and family. They come to me with questions. So for me to share it under brand, it just felt very natural to me. So it's not like starting for 3 years, I've been learning on my own, but the content has been accumulating throughout, I guess, my life. And then as far as that pivotal moment, I think is the first time I heard somebody say, I want to move into the store. I had never heard of that. It's just like, you want to move into the store. They're like, this is everything I like. You got plants, you've got crafts, you got the tables, and it feels like such a nice, warm, comfortable feeling. And I just want to be here all the time. And I'm like, that's fabulous. That's exactly what I want to do. And it's even more so than what I had originally set out.
How early on did you think about franchising? When did that come into play? And tell me about that process for you.
Yeah. So, retail is a tough business. So when I saw that in our second full year, we were profitable, I was like, maybe we're onto something, that's on the financial side of things. Third year, we're starting to think about how do we expand out of here. So obviously corporate owned is one way to go. And we are working on our second location for that. But really when it comes to having ownership and having that day-to-day drive to provide the best possible customer service, I chose franchise because you have the owners. It's literally the owner mentality, right? It comes from being an owner. I also see that from our time in the store, folks really enjoy seeing a familiar face. I know some customers, some of our regulars by name, and they know me by name. And I think that comes from being there, and that comes from just that ownership piece. So I think that's harder to do from a corporate store. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I also enjoy the process that one has to go through to franchise. I think that's a good forcing function. I think a lot of times when folks start a store or one location, it's easy to patch it together, or just you're solving the problems as it goes, and then you're not really thinking about the overall process. But I think going through the franchise process, putting it into lists and so on, it's a thing that I enjoyed, actually, to say this is what we did and this is what I think we could do again. And so I kind of chose it for both of those reasons, and looking forward to where it leads us.
Yeah, well, I could see obviously this brand leads to something being very communal, and people don't have an opportunity necessarily to be together in groups, and doing activities like this is more than just a date night of going to the movies. Of course, now you're doing something together, or doing something, whether it's team building, doing something with your hands too. I think just makes it, there's just something about it that makes it special. And not to mention you get to leave with something that you created.
people are making gifts right now for holidays. So they're coming in and
Right.
making multiple things. They're like, I know how to make that really well. I'm going to do it 3 more times for everybody in my family, So it's really nice to see. And the other day we had an assistant principal of an elementary school come in and make a couple of crafts with his friends. And afterwards he told us, I took all of his stress from the week away. And we're like, wow, that's so amazing. That's exactly what we want to do.
Yeah, yeah, because you lose yourself in what you're building, right? You can't think of anything else.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's tactile.
One of the things that came to my mind early on when you were talking about all the different crafts you can do is how in the world do we teach or train a franchisee on how to do all these crafts? Because not everybody's going to be an expert, and I would anticipate you're not looking for experts in
Correct.
craft.
Yes.
So how do we, and I don't typically ask the training question to somebody starting out in franchising, but I think your brand really lends to that question. Tell me how somebody gets trained on all these crafts.
Yeah, that's a great question. We go through that with our current team day in and day out. Whenever we bring somebody new onto the team, we're training them on all the crafts. I would say number one is a great franchisee for us is somebody who is somewhat hands-on, who's already able to do some things, who have some interest in the space, right? That's, I think, owner founder fit is an important piece. Secondly, we're looking for somebody who's naturally people oriented, who can speak to a variety of folks from various age groups as well as cultural backgrounds. That's what we do day to day in a retail environment. So if you have those two elements and you're curious, we can teach all the things. Number one is we have videos for a lot of what we do already. You can go back and watch it over and over if you wanted to. But also, I would say between some of our crafts, there is similarities between a lot of them to say, hey, this is just like that, but we're using a slightly different material. Or see this frame here, this is used for moss art, but also is used for these 3 other things. So you start to connect the dots. I don't know how much you've studied like memory retention, but when things are connected to each other, you retain it that much better. So they're not totally standalone things. I would say workshops will probably take a little longer to learn whenever we bring somebody on. They're generally learning the walk-in activities first. And then when they're really comfortable in that setting and can teach on, basically one-on-one, one-on-two, up to 4 or so smaller groups, then we start training them up for workshops, which is a little bit higher stakes. Everybody's showing up at the same time. You're setting them up for the same activity. And you got to be on a little more, right? And so for that, again, there's practice, there's shadowing. And the other cool thing with our concept is that you don't have to launch with everything available all at the same time, right? The seasonal things, you're waiting for the pumpkin season before you do the pumpkin things. And after that, you don't have to think about it for another year. So we switch things up. And I'm also like right before a particular session, I'll do a refresh with our folks. But here, just refresh your memory, make sure you've got it all, So at this point, I can host all the things, but that's also because I've done all the things for many, many times. And I think our franchisees will get there, right? But at the beginning, they don't have to.
What are some of those core, I know Drew asked that, but I'd love to hear again. Tell me some of the core crafts that you think that franchisees need, right? Like right out of the gate. Yes. I assume they're going to be the most popular crafts.
Yeah. So I'll separate it into walk-ins versus workshops, because those are 2 different types of activities. I also workshops, candle making, fresh floral arranging, and as well as now that it's colder for in the Boston area, chunky knit blankets, those are very much core offerings. I would say for the walk-in side of things, you want to cover your bases in terms of age groups, right? So for the young, you need to have something for the younger kids. So that would be painting ceramics, painting any of the figurines that we have, as well as sand art, right? And so those, as long as you know what not to eat, you're old enough to do. And then when you get a little older, then we get into something that's a little bit more interesting, with more specialized tools like resin. Resin, we actually get a waiver signed because you want to be careful where you put your gloved hands and so on. That's definitely a core piece. We see a lot of interest around that. I would say tufting is a really fun one. That's rug making. And we do both cut pile as well as pile, non-cut loop. So they do different, it's a different impact when you have cut pile versus non-cut pile. And so those are really fun. And that you're holding what looks like a drill and you're essentially putting yarn into a canvas. And I think those are really fun things. You do need a variety to get folks to come in too. And the retail.
Yeah. Yeah, I would imagine so. What about the split between people that make reservations versus walk-in?
Ooh, I would say weekends. This is what we tell everybody. Weekends and evenings we're busier, so try to make a reservation or call ahead,
Mhm.
just so you don't come in right at the start of some big thing and then you're stuck, right? So like coming a little earlier, coming a little later, we'll let you know. During the week, daytime, it's not as busy, so you could come in really anytime.
Jen, tell me about all the supplies and things that you need. I mean, I'm thinking from my perspective, in different industries, some things are perishable, but
Yeah.
I can't imagine some of these things go to waste. And I feel like that's a nice perk that, you can hold on to some of these materials for a long time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that helps with the margin for sure. So we can reuse our brushes, our palettes, all of those things. And there's not a lot of waste on that. For certain activities that are perishable, so fresh floral arranging, wreath, anything with live materials. Succulents, we actually keep year round in our store. So they're just growing happily when we're not using them. But for things that are cut, we actually go get them as a result of a workshop or so on. So those are definitely not offered as walk-ins. Um, yeah.
Jen, what's the investment range to open a location? And how big is the typical footprint of brick and
Yeah,
mortar?
great question. So our franchise fee is set at 50,000, and we recommend that folks have liquid cash of about a quarter million, so 250,000. And square footage wise, I would say about 2,500 is a good mid range. You can go a little smaller, a little bigger. Our flagship is quite large. I don't expect franchisees to go that large, which is around 4,000.
Ideal locations, you like them in what, shopping centers?
I would like them at higher traffic locations where there's more of a community feel so that word of mouth can really do its job for you. And also people can come in and discover, right? Like just walking by, they're curious. They see the word craft and then that draws folks in. And then they're like, what is this place? What's the tables and the chairs? Can I order something? And like maybe you could, depending on your location. Our current location does not offer food and bev. That is definitely something that we are looking to bring in future locations if the space allows it.
I know that something other businesses that are kind of like Craft Loft, not necessarily in crafting, is those walking shopping areas of villages. That's where you're getting your biggest bang for your buck because you're getting people that are walking by and they're kind of shopping as opposed to just that shopping center of expecting people to drive up to it. And it costs a whole lot more money to market to
Yeah,
that type of customer, right?
I would agree. We are a destination location at the moment. We're on the second floor in a shopping center. So you don't necessarily see us when you first walk in. Folks come into our workshops not having been there at all. So we do draw folks to our locations as well.
What's your best way though of marketing of getting guests to come into the shop?
I would say combination of Instagram as well as our event workshop postings. So people find those. They're searching for us online. So Google search is great. Yeah. If you're searching for crafting places, you're going to find us.
Nice. Jen, where do you see this brand growing over the next 5 to 10 years? I know you're kind of right out of the starting gate here. This is an exciting time for you,
Yes.
but I'd love to hear a little more about your vision of where you think the company's going to go.
Yeah, well, I think given the breadth of what we offer, not only can we do well in major cities, I think we can also do quite well a little bit further out in the suburbs where there's really not as much things to do. And because we have that range, right? If you're looking at a single craft kind of offering, which is, I think traditionally has been what's out there, you need a bit more concentration to make that one craft interesting for enough people to come in and do, right? So, and because we offer so many different things, there's a very strong repeat pattern that we're seeing with customers. They do multiple workshops, they bring friends, they do other things. When we do private events at businesses for team building and what have you, that's also a great exposure. And then they bring in additional folks in. So in terms of number of units, I would not be surprised if we get to 250 at some point in the future, whether that's 5 or 10 years. I don't know. I'm very open to it. But certainly I'm expecting a lot. I think this is great.
Are you looking to expand primarily in the Northeast now, or are you open nationwide? Where exactly you're targeting your locations?
Yeah, I would say the smart thing is to open closer to us, right? Because then we can support you a little bit more easily. I can come in within a day. We do have a team that's a little bit remote. That's from our COVID days as well. So we've got somebody in Chicago, we've got somebody in Ohio. So, if we were to find some great franchisees in those areas, or at least within a day trip I think we're open to that as well. I would say it's not a no to somebody who's further out on the western side of US, but they're going to have to be stronger operators themselves, just because we can't get to you as quickly as we can with somebody who's already on the East Coast. So maybe some issues you'd have to solve on your own. But we're here to support.
And are you looking for just single unit owners, or are you open to multi-unit operators? I know we talked a little bit about the kind of person that would be ideal, definitely hands-on, but I do wonder though, are you open to the breadth of somebody that's looking to expand their portfolio of businesses that maybe are something that's complementary to Craft Loft?
Yeah. I think we're open to both individual as well as multi-unit. What I'm seeing now with multi-unit, actually, there's an opportunity to save on your opening cost. So take the example of some of our equipment like sewing machines, right? If you can schedule out your workshop so that they're not doing sewing workshops all at the same time, you can get higher usability out of your machine. You just move it around the different stores, so that could be interesting as well. And that could save on storage for some of your locations. That can save on your starting cost as well. I would just say for the multi locations, they're going to then really hire great store managers who's going to be there day in, day out. But I think that's true for any multi-unit owner.
Yeah, for sure. Anything that you're seeing differently since you've been doing this? Any trends in the industry? Maybe it's the kind of crafts that you're seeing people, and I don't mean necessarily seasonal wise, but has there been a shift over the past 5 years of what people are leading towards that you maybe even surprised you weren't expecting from where you started?
Yeah, I would say the biggest change is what brought on by COVID, right? So COVID, everybody was they picked up a lot of crafts, and that's only really continued as they shared more with friends. They say, oh, look what I made when I was at home. and then somebody else want to pick up the craft. I would say similarly, you can see it in the pet industry too. Like, dog adoption went up during COVID, and it's really only continued on from there as well. I think people are craving that socialization. They're craving that back to basics and maybe away from the screens a little bit and the social media. So there's that resurgence in the traditional crafts. A lot of interest in learning how to knit, how to sew from adults. And I think there's awareness of what fast fashion is doing, and there's interest in doing something else, or at least making your items last longer. And how can I hem my pants? That's a common ask that we get in the store. So I think that the timing is perfect for something like Craft Loft to be out there to create a space and the support system around folks getting together and making something. And no, by the way, you don't have to make the same things. You can make something different, but together. And that's the beauty of our walk-ins. Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, why now is a great time to be part of your system. You kind of answered it, but I think also you got to agree that the whole country is open right now. Yeah. The territories that are around now are not going to be around years from now. And this is a great opportunity for somebody to be part of your brand.
Yeah.
Also you're going to have a different type of franchise owner early on than you will years from now.
Probably. I would also say right now, from a real estate perspective, there are some openings in places that traditionally don't have openings. So that's also something that we're noticing too. You can get some prime locations now that may not be around in another 5 years or so.
Well, Jen, if someone was interested in learning more about the franchise, where would they go?
Yeah, so there's a couple of places. One is they should definitely check out our current website, which is www.craft-loft.com. And then they should come to our franchise site, which is www.ownacraftloft.com. All one word.
Awesome. Well, Jen, thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate it. Love learning all about Craft Loft. Drew, thanks so much again for guest co-hosting. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on. Love Craft Loft. So excited to hopefully take a visit up to Boston and see it.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group, LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.